Hey there, here's another screencast. Today, this topic is the two-tailed hypothesis test. And this builds off of two other previous screencasts, one on a left-tailed hypothesis test, and the screencast wasn't titled that, and the other on a right-tailed hypothesis test. So I'm going to work through this example here. It's problem number 6 in our textbook in chapter 6, section 1. A type of stainless steel powder is supposed to have a mean particle diameter of 15 micrometers. A random sample of 87 steel particles had a mean diameter of 15.2 micrometers, with a standard deviation of 1.8 micrometers. Test to see if the steel has the expected mean diameter or not. So we're going to do a hypothesis test for this to decide if our steel is up to spec. And let's do this slightly differently than we did last time. Let's define a random variable. So I'm going to let x be the random variable that's the diameter of a steel particle. And what should happen, what should be true, is the mean diameter should be 15 micrometers. So x is measured in micrometers. So we're going to get a sample of size 87. And notice that's a large sample, so we can invoke the central limit theorem. So in our sample, we get a sample mean. So how should I write this down? Yeah. We get a sample mean of 15.2 micrometers. And we get a sample standard deviation of 1.8 micrometers. Now, because our sample size is large, we can invoke the central limit theorem, which tells us that the sample mean distribution for the diameters is distributed normally with some mean, and its standard deviation is going to be 1.8 over the square root of our sample size. Now, notice this is not the population sample or standard deviation. This is our sample standard deviation. But because our sample is so big, we will feel okay about exchanging the sample standard deviation for the population standard deviation. So this is a standard thing the textbook talks about. Now the question is, what mean do we use here? Well, this is where we're going to do our hypothesis test starts. So we're going to assume that the mean for our population is what it's supposed to be. We're going to assume it's going to be 15 micrometers. So we're going to assume that. And under that assumption, our sample mean has a normal distribution with mean 15 and standard deviation 1.8 over root 87. And here's where our hypothesis test begins. So we'll have our null hypothesis and our alternative hypothesis. Our null hypothesis is, our mean is what it should be. In the context of our sample, our null hypothesis is our mean is what it should be. And our alternative hypothesis is, nope, something's wrong. Our mean is not what it should be. Now, right here you can see that this example is very different from the previous two examples that I worked. The previous two examples, my alternative hypothesis had an inequality there. Here I've got a not equal sign, but to make a connection between what we did then and what we're doing now, note that I could rewrite this as a statement involving an inequality. I could rewrite this as mu is less than 15 micrometers or mu is bigger than 15 micrometers. And here's where you see the two tails come into play. Here I'm saying if this is my distribution and here's my mean, in this case it's 15, I'm going to have some x bar and then I'm going to have something else over here. Either of these two things could happen. I need to be looking at both tails at the same time. So our hypothesis test is going to revolve in some sense around the distance between our sample mean. Here's 15.2, so I guess that's up here. It's this distance, and then we're going to come down the same distance here and make the second tail. So I'll repeat that. What we're going to do is that we'll take our sample mean. Let's correct this. Take our sample mean, and it defines a tail, just like it has in our previous examples that we've worked. But now I'm going to build a second tail, and I'm going to look at this distance here, and I'm going to duplicate that same distance down in the other direction. It's going to get me, I don't know what to call it. I'm going to call it x tilde, just for something different. But it defines another tail. And now I'm interested, my p-value is going to be the area that's in both tails. That's the sum of it. Okay. So let's calculate that p-value. Let's calculate the area of these two tails. So p-value, it's the probability that my sample mean is bigger than the one that I computed, or the sample mean is less than this other number here. So let me just explain where these are coming from, and I'll do it in blue again to offset. So our x bar was 15.2, but our purported mean was 15. So if I calculate the difference between these and call it delta, I'm going to write delta as x bar minus mu. In this case, it's 0.2. So what I'm going to do on my number line is I've got my sample mean at 15.2. I'm going to look at its mirror image down here. So I'm going to go delta, not delta x, delta to the left of 15, so that's 14.8, and that's going to be my other cutoff point for the other tail. So that's where these two numbers come. 15.2, that's our sample mean. 14.8, that's our mirror point. That denotes the start of the other tail. So now we need to calculate this probability. Well, we'll draw another picture here. The probabilities are these areas. 15.2, 14.8, 15 is right here. The two areas are disjoint, so you can think of these two events as independent. It's probably the wrong language. But this is going to be the probability that x bar is bigger than 15.2. That's this area. And then we have to add to that the other area. The probability x is less than 14.8. That's this area. So I'm going to show you two ways of thinking about the next step. So here's the first way. This next way we're going to use properties of probabilities. So we don't have to do anything with that. But calculating this probability of being greater than 15.2, that's not the way our calculator works, our R works. We need to tell R to look at 1 minus, or to calculate 1 minus the probability x bar is less than 15.2. So that's going to give us R. We'll calculate this probability here, but we want the complement. And so 1 minus this, the big area, is going to give us our tail, right? Our tail here. So we can throw that into R, and we'll get a number. We'll get two numbers, add them together. We'll do that in a second. Let me show you the second way you can think about this. The second way you can think about this is the following. It uses knowledge of the normal distribution. Our normal distribution is nicely symmetric, right, with the mean right at the middle. So these tails are exactly the same. So the total area in these tails in our situation here is going to be twice the area of either one tail. So I could calculate my p-value now as just saying 2 times the probability x bar is less than 14.8. So if you do that, I wrote this down somewhere here. The R gives us the number 0.1500135, which is 0.3000270. And if you were to do the calculation this way, you'd get 0.1500135 plus 1 minus 0.8499865, which works out to the same thing, wouldn't you know? Two different ways to calculate the p-value. So the p-value of x bar equals 15.2 is 0.300270, or about 30%. This is a very big p-value. The area in these tails is pretty big. To reject a null hypothesis, people generally have a small p-value they work with, like 1% or 2.5% or 5%. This is really not like any of those. Oh, I see a typo. This is really pretty big. So what we would say then, we would say this probability is large. So we conclude there is insufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis. In normal people speak, we'd say the data supports the assertion that the steel particles meet manufacturer specifications of mu equals 15 micrometers. Okay, so an example where a hypothesis test fails to reject the null hypothesis, or fails to reject the null hypothesis. So you persist with the null hypothesis. All right, that's what I wanted to show you. Again, remember, a similar thing can happen if we are working with a smaller data set and we don't know that our sample statistic is distributed according to a normal distribution, and so we have to use the student t-distribution. You set this up the same way. You calculate p-values according to the t-distribution with the proper number of degrees of freedom. But the same principles apply in a two-tailed hypothesis test for a t-distribution. And I'll just leave it at that. Thanks. See you next time.